So if you guys win and you start firing people who are acting against orders of their commander-in-chief and against the expressed will of voters, the New York Times will call it a fascist takeover.
That's exactly right.
So the question is, do you care?
Well, I think we have to not care. Now, you have to care about public opinion, of course, because you have to actually make the case to the American people. Real democracy is when the elected leaders the voters elect actually make the decisions in the government.
Right.
But fascism, if it's anything, it's that the voters don't get any say in how their government actually operates. I've been in politics all of 2 years, but there are all of these really subtle ways in which the media, the tech sector, the people who call the shots try to manipulate the American public and manipulate political leadership into not doing the things the American people actually want. So here, let me give you an example. Mark this down. I guarantee in 18 months or so, we're going to have, this is going to be prophetic. So right now, according to public opinion polling, 65% of Americans, give or take, support mass deportations, meaning 25 million people here, you've got to send some of them back to where they came from. Okay, that's a common sense issue. 2/3 of Americans, give or take, support it. In 18 months, there will be media stories and there will be public opinion polls to back it up that actually Americans do not support mass deportations, that Donald Trump is doing all of these terrible things and he has to stop. It's inhumane, it's evil, and the American public don't support it. The same people who put those public opinion polls together are the same people who say, for example, that Donald Trump was going to lose Wisconsin by 17 points. Remember that? 3 days before the 2020 election, Donald Trump was supposed to lose Wisconsin by 17 points. And set to the side all of the debates about what happened in 2020, Wisconsin was basically a tied election. So these guys use public polls, they use the media, not even just to manipulate public opinion, but to manipulate our leadership about what public opinion actually says.
So how does that happen? So those polls are fake, is what you're saying?
Oh, absolutely, they're fake. They're absolutely fake. A friend of mine, I think, is the best pollster in America. Every race I've ever seen him poll, he's way better than anybody else, okay? So good pollster versus a standard media pollster. Fabrizio. Tony Fabrizio, great guy. He's the president's pollster, okay? Take a standard media poll and ask yourself, like, what are they doing? Those polls are all conducted by what's called online panels. In other words, they have a group of people that they go to again and again and again. They ask their opinion. Well, who are the people who are going to respond aggressively to online panels about what they feel about every issue of the day? A bunch of highly engaged, typically far left, typically people with professional degrees, people who are not representative of the American people at large, right? Meanwhile, most Americans are trying to pay their mortgage and trying to take care of their kids and trying to do all the things that are necessary to live a life in this country. And they're not answering the phone when a pollster picks up. So if you actually look at the good pollsters, they're telling you a radically different story because they're talking to a representative sample of the United States. And the fake media pollsters are talking to a very narrow slice of the United States. And again, they're trying to sell us a story. And this is not primarily to manipulate the American people. I think it's to manipulate us, meaning elected officials. Because I've sat in lunches with a number of my colleagues who will say, look at this poll and look how Americans are responding to this or that issue. And then you realize that that exact same poll was wildly inaccurate 2 years ago. Why are you making your judgments about what the American people believe based on some poll? And oh, by the way, why don't you express some leadership? Why don't you just actually have a view and go to the American people and try to persuade them that your view is wise and then enact legislation in accordance with that wisdom, right? Like that's how real leadership should work.
What's so deceptive, and I think what people don't realize is that a lot of these polls are designed not to measure opinion, but to shape it.
Yes.
So they are tools of influence.
100%. Let's say you want to support President Trump and you read a story that says he's down by 17 points in Wisconsin. Why even show up? Right? So there's a voter suppression dynamic here where you try to get people to get depressed and to drop out of the democratic process. Don't even go and vote if the president is down by so much. The purpose of these polls is actually manipulation of both the public themselves, but also, of course, elected officials. And I think that we have to have the courage to trust our own convictions, to say, screw you, I don't buy the polls, and to do what you think is right on behalf of the country.